In this podcast, we chat about the defeat at Ipswich, the Boro's injury crisis, and look ahead to Hull. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana, and Tom. We're the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday Chatter in a podcast. And 3 defeats in 4 for Boro, currently sitting in 12th place, 3 points off the playoffs. But we are 3 points better off than we were at the same point last season. So silver lining and all that. But Dana, defeat again yesterday at the Riverside. What was your one key takeout from the week?
Probably that when you have a significant amount of injuries, it is going to show at some point. And I think we saw that yesterday. Some people say that it's an excuse, but I think it is legitimate, valid reason. I mean, there were just no combinations yesterday that we typically see from Boro. I think the patterns of play were lacking. And I did think during that game that if we had those players back, or at least let's say like 3 of them on top of Dilfry coming back, I think we would have made a better fist of it than we did. Now, I'm not going to say that we would have won. That's not what I'm saying. But I think the performance level would have been better. So, yeah, key injuries have hit Boro and hampered Boro at a key time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and for you, Tom, what was your one key takeout?
My one key takeout is that we need some sort of Christmas miracle in the physio department, for pretty much the same reasons that Dana's just summed up there. I might go one step further and say that if we had a full strength squad yesterday, I believe we would have won that, because I didn't think they were particularly that good. Which, I mean, going into the game, I was expecting more, so I don't know if that's potentially the reason I'm thinking like that. I haven't seen a great deal of Ipswich this season, but obviously the table doesn't lie, unlike what certain other people might say occasionally. But I did see like a goal last week of like one of their fullbacks scoring a Trivella or something. I was like kind of looking forward to seeing what they had to offer this week, and I imagine they're where they are for a reason, but it's not off performances like yesterday. But yeah, I felt like we could have gone at them yesterday. But we had extremely disjointed squads. A lot of the time, it looked like they'd not played together because we couldn't string 2 passes together at times. And I would put that down to the lack of familiarity with a large amount of players missing. So, like I say, I think if it was a full strength squad, it'd be a very different match. But it's very frustrating to see at the moment, and it's frustrating as a fan to kind of hear the press conferences every week where the question is that always asked: are certain players any closer to being back from injury? And it's always a very vague answer. Obviously, I know we don't want to give kind of too much away about the health of our players, but it's a very vague answer and say, oh, they'll be back when they're back and stuff like that. And it never seems like they are ever any closer to coming back at times. And if they are, it'll be a complete surprise to us.
Yeah, and the injuries are racking up, getting worse. A couple of people hobbling about yesterday as well. And my key takeout for the week is Boro's decision-making cost them the game yesterday. Reason being, multiple reasons. I think in the first half, there was poor decisions whilst the ball was in play, and we were able to try and switch the ball to Engel when he's in loads of space, and we never. And when we were going forward, we weren't making that right pass. I think the second one is the second goal, and I'll come to that very soon, where if we make a better decision, the second goal probably doesn't materialize the way it does. And I would say that the third one for as part of the key takeout is ill discipline and seeing games and reacting in ways where we give up poor fouls away, cheap fouls, and also we just our heads fall off essentially in certain moments of the game. I look at Greenwood at times. I look at Matt Crooks yesterday, where we make silly fouls and challenges where you put your team potentially in jeopardy, and you get yourself booked at a time where we are really racking up these injuries and suspensions. And I think just be a bit more mindful of and not be as reactionary in games. And yeah, I think decision making for me is our downfall for the week. But let's look at the game yesterday, because Ipswich went on and won 2-0 yesterday. With an XG of 0.94, Boro was 0.46 as well. So a very, very tight game. It was a game that was probably going to be dictated in moments or one or two key factors. And Connor Chaplin scored in the first half, and Omari Hutchinson rounded off a really good win for Ipswich. But Dana, what was your overall assessment of the game yesterday?
I just thought we were crap, to be honest. I think a lot of people, myself included, built up the game as a clash between two very attack-minded teams, and I expected it to be an entertaining game, but I was kind of disappointed in it, to be honest. I think the first half was very subdued. It could potentially be put down to both teams feeling each other out a little bit, and me and Ben Bloom were talking about it on the opposition preview show, that maybe they'll cancel each other out, and I do think we saw an element of that in the first half. So it was a little bit flat, a little bit boring, dare I say. There wasn't a lot to really say about it. There wasn't a lot of incident, a lot to know up until the goal. And then in the second half, I just thought we just lacked quality at the end of the day. We massively lacked quality. As I said, the combinations, the Crooks and Jones link up obviously wasn't there because Jones was absent. And I think we definitely felt the absence of the players that were missing. I think there was a period in that second half where we looked like we were growing into it. We had a couple of corners and we had opportunities or openings to create opportunities. But we were slow with the ball. I think we were cumbersome in possession, and ultimately we didn't really get going at any point during the game. So yeah, it was really disappointing. I don't think Ipswich, well, I thought at the time I didn't think Ipswich were that impressive, but then I went back home after the game and I thought, actually, they were. And I'll tell you why. Because they control pretty much every part of that football match, specifically when they were out of possession. And I think when you have that, the reason for it basically is good coaching. To be well drilled as a very basic starting point, I think is definitely the basis of a good result. And yeah, out of possession, they were fantastic. They were very well organised. They had Boro exactly where they wanted them, kept them at bay, kept them to non-threatening positions, and they picked us off with two very effective goals. Obviously, the first one's deflected, but the second one is really well worked. So yeah, fair play to them. They're up there for a reason. I think we saw that yesterday. They might not have been at their swashbuckling best, but out of possession, they were absolutely fantastic. Kept Boro exactly where they needed to be, and then yeah, just picked us off. So we didn't deserve anything from the game, and that's what we got.
Tom, is there anything that you want to add to that in terms of the overall defeat? I know you said at the start of the show that Ipswich you weren't particularly impressed. Obviously, Dana's came up with more of an impressed approach in terms of off the ball stuff and how they controlled it. But what's your overall assessment of things?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I wasn't particularly impressed, I mean, like I said, I've not watched a lot of Ipswich this season. I think in terms of the results, like they speak for themselves in terms of attacking. So I was expecting to see a little bit more going forward in the first half. I mean, this counts for both teams as well, but I didn't think there was anything they were coming up with that we weren't equal to. We were cutting out a lot of their crosses, and they never really looked like scoring for me. I mean, we didn't either, but they didn't. And then it's just that goal, obviously incomplete clearance, catch it on the volley, deflects off Matt Clarke and in, and it's a completely different game from that point. And that does allow them to I mean, not even change shape out of possession, but just, I don't know, you can slow the game down at times and prevent Boro from kind of doing anything, because you've already got that 1-goal lead, and you can take your time a little bit more, I think, is what I'm kind of wanting to say there. On the Boro side of things, we were awful, and there were. I don't want to sound kind of too much like BBCT's phone-in person here, where they're all like super reactive and stuff, but there were far too many passengers in the team. For me yesterday, I don't understand the reasoning behind putting Sam Greenwood right wing. It took me about 40 minutes to realise he was playing. And by the time he came off, I was like, he's come off about 70 minutes too late, because he didn't offer anything in that right-hand side, that right wing role. Anytime he got the ball, he wasn't necessarily looking to take a man on, or build anything in terms of a passing move. It was going backwards. I mean, Engel was doing the same on his side, particularly in the first half, and that was a bit of a shame, considering I think one of the only positives we can maybe take from the last couple of games is Matt Clarke being back, and him being left-footed actually allows him to play that ball in front of Engel, which, when Engel's not running onto it and kind of taking advantage of that, it's a bit frustrating to watch. On the right-hand side, there was absolutely no link-up at all. I think putting Greenwood there, it's a complete change of shape from what we're used to with Jones. And the thing is as well, I mean, I said this to my dad halfway through the game, we're missing something on that right-hand side. And I don't even think it's necessarily only Isaiah Jones that could offer that. I think the obvious change for that game would have been Silvera right wing instead of Sam Greenwood. But like I say, I thought that made us incredibly one-sided, lopsided in terms of our attacking. And it was obvious what we were going to do, and that absolutely plays into Ipswich's hands as well, where off the ball they're quite organised, but they only have to really worry about one side, and the wing back on that side keeps going backwards. I will say as well, I mean, I know we rate him on this podcast, and we know what he can offer, but it gets a lot harder to defend Dan Barlaser after performances like yesterday. I didn't think he progressed the ball well at all. Passing was a bit off at times, and I don't think, in terms of a player profile in centre midfield, I don't know what we're going for there, considering Hackney and Howson offer something in terms of being box to box and progressing the ball. But Dan Barlas is a very different type of player in that respect. And I've mentioned it before, he needs to kind of like work on progressing the ball, and he has done that in games. Albeit I've mainly seen it in cup games and against much lower opposition. But he really needs to be doing that and being able to fill in when Hackney or Howson are out, because like I say, it's hard to defend him after games like yesterday, and I want him to do well here. But he just didn't have a good game. And then one of the other people who was getting absolute pelters on BBCTs was Morgan Rogers. And on the drive back, I was like, well, you know what? Morgan Rogers was one of the only people to kind of like get me off my seat at times. And in terms of his dribbling, he had a good few runs, but looking back on the game and think back on what he did, it was always that last touch that kind of let him down. It was either the touch was too heavy when he was trying to like create space for himself, or the final pass was the wrong one. I was like, for everything all the kind of chaos you're causing going forwards and like holding these players off and progressing the ball from midfield, it's always just that last touch that kind of lets you down. And I was confused as to why he was one of the main boo boys on BBCTs, and Sam Greenwood wasn't mentioned at all yesterday, because honestly that's where I noticed it the most. But again, I really want Morgan Rogers to do well, and I think this is going to kind of come down to development. Like Kieran Scott said in his interview a couple of weeks ago, we are buying permanent players and trying to develop them. And I imagine it's going to be the same with Lackdale Laugh as well. If someone can kind of teach him some better decision making and composure. But it's that type of thing. Like if these players had the full package, they wouldn't be playing for us. But it's frustrating to see at times where we're just, we're in December now and they're still kind of making these mistakes. Sorry, I know I rambled on a long time there.
And hey, you that's what I asked for your thoughts, Tom. You gave him, and there's a lot I think to unpack from it when you look at like the players that played yesterday and why we didn't get the most out of the performances. Tactically, with Greenwood on the right and Rodgers on the left, naturally these players want to play centrally. So then you create like a really narrow shape. And when you're a team like Ipswich and you wanted to control the game, you want to play over narrow shape. So you try and force a team out wide because that's where you're least likely to create a chance or score. So with Boro trying to have more players centrally, like Greenwood and like Rodgers, you don't really create much of an opportunity for Barlaser to spread the ball out wide or to create an overlap. And then when you have Vandenberg, who isn't naturally a winger and overlaps and will want to play back, he'll come more centrally again. And then for Engel, he's looking on that ball on the left-hand side and he's looking for a winger or he's looking for something to create space. But when everyone's so central, there's nothing much on. So your safer place is to actually play back and then you start that horseshoe type of player where you just play it from side to side and you try and create this thing. But what you could have really done now, I fully agree with you, is play Silvera on the right yesterday, or you play Rodgers on the right, and you just try and stretch a game out. The more you stretch a team out, you will try and pull teams apart, or you'll hopefully, if they're doing a man-to-man system, they will create space for the likes of Greenwood on the left to come across, or on the right to come across, or for Rodgers on the left to come across to create those overloads. But we just didn't do that yesterday, and that was where it's really frustrating. It was quite similar to what we were saying at the start of the season, where we were doing that same thing where we were all trying to come a bit too narrow and weren't creating as many chances and trying to play through teams. The option yesterday, we could have also tried to play a long ball because I think that long ball was always on all day if you wanted to do it. But when you're playing with layoff up top, you need someone with him, I think. And I know we've said before, well, I'd like to see maybe Corbyn and layoff together because I think they probably bring out the best of both. Because I think when they're individually to get in by themselves, they don't really create a huge impact. But layoff yesterday had a chance and he should be putting that away. But overall, it was a game where I think we played in a lot into Ipswich's hands, but Ipswich were very good for me on off the ball yesterday. Dana, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, I was going to say something about Silvera. To be fair, everyone seems to assume that Silvera is or will be a winger to take it on the outside. We haven't seen that much. We saw it against West Brom where he set up laugh. But Silvera seems like the type of player that wants to shoot. So he wants to cut inside. He wants to get that shot off. I'm not convinced that had Silvera played yesterday that it would have been any different. I don't know whether it's on instruction or whether the natural instinct is to go central. But I mean, I agree with you completely. It was completely condensed in the middle and we had no outlet. Or actually we did. It was Lucas Engel. He just wasn't being passed to for some reason. Didn't we have a game like that earlier on this season where Paddy McNair did not want to pass to Engel at all? Mm-hmm. It was very reminiscent of that. And it was so frustrating to watch us because everything was so clogged in that central area. There was no out ball. Whereas conversely with Ipswich, they like to accumulate a lot of possession on that left-hand side and then punt that ball to the right-hand side with Wes Burns. And so they shift it from one side to the other, which we saw very often under Michael Carrick last season. And so it was incredibly frustrating to see Boro be as predictable as they were yesterday. I'm not sure that Silvera would have changed that much. And plus, there were so many off performances yesterday individually that I don't think one player would have changed it. I will say though, kind of contradicting my point potentially, but I think we did miss Isaiah Jones because I know that he will give us that width. I'm not sure that Silvera would have.
I wouldn't say Silvera was the player. I would say the substitution or player that should have came on earlier yesterday is you put Bangura at left back and you push Engel further up because naturally both of them were wingers by trade and you stretch a team out. If you play with a left and a right footer, on the respective wings. You could keep Rodgers out wide if you want to. You just try to stretch a team. I think that's where you create that space, because you can still do, if you have that left and right, you could still push Rodgers over in that central area and still just do it as an opposite. You know, where previously where we look to the left and we play that player on the left hand side to come in with, you just flip it over to the right side. And I think if you had the two full backs on the wings, I think you would have stretched the game a little bit further. But go on, Tom, you're going to come in there.
I was going to say, just on Silvera and the point Dana made about him kind of wanting to cut in and shoot all the time. I think because we've seen him primarily deployed on the left and he's right-footed, and I mean we knew it kind of coming into signing him, and what we'd seen in terms of the clips that he was wanting to kind of cut inside and take a shot off. I do think because he was playing in that position, it would have been his instruction prior. But if you put him on the right hand side with instructions to try and get at your man and put a cross in, we might see a different performance from him. I mean, I'd hope so if that's what he's being told to do, and it's his job. I'm not trying to sound like Roy Keane, but I think in terms of his agility and his ability to kind of like take a man on, he could offer that on the right hand side. I don't think he'd have made a massive difference yesterday. But my issue with putting Greenwood there instead of Silvera is it does offer something different to our usual system. And, we became lopsided on that left-hand side because I didn't feel like Greenwood was offering anything on the right-hand side, especially anything similar to what Isaiah Jones would normally do. If you put Silvera there with Isaiah Jones's usual instructions, I think we probably see him trying to put in a similar kind of style of playing that position to Isaiah Jones. Whether or not he does it, I don't know. But I don't see him kind of cutting inside to try and shoot on his left. I think he would be trying to take his man on. But how that would have gone, I don't know.
Yeah, and it comes back down to decision making, doesn't it? And like in the game, and how decisions can influence moments on the pitch. And I want to go and have a look at the second goal from Ipswich yesterday, because it's a really interesting goal when you do break it down. But I want to have a quick look at just the actual how when the free kick was taken, because when the free kick actually is taken, there is a lot of space between the midfield line and the defensive line. And when you look at Middlesbrough attacking front four plus Barlaser, they create a lot of space, and Boro go man for man in this free kick, and the hope that Ipswich go along really. And Wolfenden, he has a look and goes, Hurst is free, and he's going to pull away from Matt Clarke, and he does. He pulls, and what Hurst does really, really well, and it's very simple centre forward play, is that he's pushing back on Clarke, and then he goes forward. He creates that space for himself, and he's able to turn Matt Clarke really well. But as before that ball's even been taken, you want to look at Amari Hutchinson, because he pulls away from Fry, and he's already on his bike before that ball's even played to Hurst. So he's already created that distance. He's already got Dale Fry on the back foot, and Dale Fry is actually ball watching at the time. And when the ball does get played, it's actually a really heavy touch from Hurst. And Connor Chaplin, he sees the run from Amari Hutchinson, and is able to play the ball through, and he is a good yard or two on side and is able to put the ball away. But there's a moment in this game where I think when you look at the goal from that and you go, wow, why is Middlesbrough so like aggressive in that press? Why are they so creating that much space? Well, actually, when you look at the goal back from way before that free kick's been taken, there's a really good clip about Dan Barlaser early on from it, and he's looking at Johnny House, and he's looking at Dale Fry saying, okay, you get Hutchinson, and he's getting told to walk towards and really press forward for against this Wolfenden pass. But if he actually doesn't do this movement of going forward, this goal probably actually doesn't even happen before the free kick's even been taken. So if he's actually able to stay back in that moment, and he's able to stay on the centre circle, the ball doesn't get played through. You can put like a laugh, and Matt Crooks can mark Sam Morsey and the other midfielder, and you still go man for man, but you create an extra body within that that midfield, so the ball won't get played through. But when we talk about decisions and whether we need to stick or twist in those moments, I think if Dan Barlaser does stay there, and we don't have that really aggressive press when we don't need to as well. We don't need to. The ball is at the other end of the pitch. They're not going to really play a really short ball and create danger on the edge of your own box, you're either going to probably more likely play it long in those moments. If you just stay and you commit the right decision, that doesn't happen. And there's a couple of things in there where there's a couple of bad decisions, like Dale Fry. You could pull them apart and say, well, actually, you're tracking your runner there. Matt Clarke, use your experience and don't get turned so quickly. And very simple turn. You can go look at Lucas Engel and say, do you step up a little bit sooner? And there's so many things that are individually wrong in that goal, but it all stems from that movement from Dan Barlaser. When you look at the clip back, he actually doesn't want to take that run. He doesn't want to press forward, but he gets told to press, and then it goes and materializes from there. And it's a really good strike from Mara Hutchinson. You could maybe even say that Dieng could be positioned a little bit better, but we won't go into that. And that sealed a really good win for Ipswich, and they're absolutely flying. They're still second in the championship table now. But for Boro, we are 3 defeats in 4 now in the championship. Bristol City leads, and now Ipswich. Of course, we did beat Preston, but we are still 3 points off the playoffs, and it's not the worst thing in the world. And Boro's injury list is massive now, and we alluded to that at the start of the show. But Tom, do you think that the injury and suspension problem now that we really do have is starting to play a real catch up with Boro? Because it started off okay, and now it's starting to get progressively a little bit worse.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I suppose the one positive on that front for Wednesday is that Jones and Dijksteel are back. So only one game suspensions for both of them for a second yellow and for 5 yellows. So we've at least got a couple of senior players back from that. But like I said earlier, it's frustrating every week where it seems like these players are no further along to being able to play. It's definitely catching up with us. I think we saw that yesterday. And, we just need some of these players back to be able to really kind of progress this season. What I wouldn't give now to see, Riley McGree and Marcus Force back in the team, and just kind of offering something in terms of creativity, or, Hayden Hackney in midfield, even Paddy McNair being backwards would definitely help. Although, like I've said before, I suppose the one positive from him being out is that Matt Clarke's come back in sooner, and I might talk about him a little bit more in a little bit, but he's. I mean, it definitely looks like, even though he's been out for a year, that ability's still not left him. He is still looking like a good defender, even though it is worrying for me anytime he goes into anything physical. I just don't want him to be out that long again. But yeah, it's getting frustrating. And I think as well, particularly in December, one of the most condensed times of year in terms of fixtures, we really need to be utilising squad depth, and having that many players out in December is definitely not a good thing. And I kind of hope as well that people aren't pinning the hopes on us using the transfer window to sort this out in January, because it would mean a hell of a January transfer window to kind of fill in all those gaps. I can maybe see a couple of loan signings, and but then I still think we'll be kind of sticking to our plan as we had it. I don't think we're going to go into January with 10 players missing, be like, right, we need to sign 10 players, because it's just not how it's going to work. I can maybe see us kind of like unregistering or deregistering Lenihan and Smith as they can't play for the rest of the season, and kind of replacing them with loan signings, shore up the defence a little bit, and then I think it's going to be looking at the positions where we plan to strengthen all along.
You were saying about Matt Clarke there, and obviously he came back in and he looked really good. In my opinion, yesterday, I thought he was probably one of Boro's best players, even though I did deflect off his head and go in to the corner. But how would you think he did yesterday, Tom? The more he's playing now, the more he's starting to get back used to playing that level again. So, what was your overall assessment on him?
I'm the same as you with that, Johnny. I definitely thought he was one of our better players yesterday, and I mean it's not a particularly high bar for that performance yesterday, but he did kind of stand out in defence. I'm happy having him back, as I mentioned earlier. having him back means we can kind of progress it down the left a little bit quicker with him being left-footed, and he can play that kind of in swinging pass down the left, keeping it out of from going out of play, unlike a right-footed centre back would. In terms of his defensive abilities, I thought what we've seen in the last couple of games, barring the first 30 seconds he came on against Leeds and being forced into that tackle that gave away a penalty, I think he's looked really good in terms of his defensive qualities, his positioning. It's just like I say, it's always a heart and mouth moment if he goes into anything physical. It's just like, is he going to come out with it all right? We know kind of how serious his injury was, but happy to have him back. As we know, he was Player of the Year three times for two different loan teams before he signed for us. Like, he clearly has the ability. He's an experienced Championship centre back. It's great to have him back in the team. Like I said, I just hope he can stay injury free.
Yeah, and then obviously all the injuries that Boro have now in the suspensions, with players out, it still creates opportunity for someone to come in and take something and create or make that position their own. Do you think there's any players that have done themselves good with all the injuries that we've had?
Not really.
Yeah.
I don't think I can say with confidence that anyone has, to be honest. I mean, Clarke is one, but by virtue of the fact that we don't have anyone else really to come in at centre back. Yeah, I wouldn't really say anybody, because Lath has come back in, and there's always a question about Lath. What is his best position? Yesterday, someone on T said he should play number 10. We should trial him there. We've had, Lath could be a right winger. So the fact that there is that conversation to even start with just tells me that he's not doing, I wouldn't say he's not doing a good job at centre half, because at the end of the day he is scoring goals, but then his performances I don't think have been particularly strong, and he's so frustrating. I mean, if anything could sum up that game yesterday, it was probably that point where Lath had the ball in the left channel, and then within one single touch ended up in the right wing.
Yeah, the trampoline touch. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that. I think that was an ultra trampoline touch, if you could get that. It was, yeah, I think that epitomizes Lath. So, yeah, I don't think anyone really has come in and really staked a claim to really start consistently, even when the injuries are back. Like Sam Greenwood, for example, as soon as Riley McGree comes back, he's back in that side, and Greenwood's probably benched. So, yeah, I wouldn't really say that anyone has staked a claim, to be honest.
Okay, then. Well, let's move on now, and let's move on to podcast questions. Yes, podcast questions. Every week you get the chance to ask us a question via Twitter, Boro_breakdown, email theborobreakdown@hotmail.com, or by joining our Telegram chat with over 360 Boro fans, chatting everything but Boro. And the first question is from Joe, and he says, with Josh Coburn in the starting 11, we have only lost one game in 10. With Josh Coburn on the bench, we've only won one game in 10. Is this a coincidence, or do we just work better as a team and a unit when Josh is up front? Who would like to take this one? You're both looking that you don't want to answer it.
Tom had some opinions yesterday, so I think Tom should
go
take
for it,
this one.
Tom. Tom, you can take this one.
I can't remember what the opinions were. I think I know. I think I know what you're talking about. I think I was sat in the car listening to BBC Tees, and everyone was going about Josh Coburn. I'm like, it's weird how he suddenly turns into like prime fat Ronaldo when he's been benched for a little while. Like, he's going to come in and score all these goals. Like, he didn't score those goals when he was in the team. However, I can understand the argument to put him in the team, because I think in terms of link-up play up front, he did that quite well. I think it also shows what we need to look for in a striker in January. I feel like what we are missing this season, I mean, it's easy to say this considering he got 29 goals last season, but we're missing someone with Akpom's qualities, and I'm not even necessarily talking about the finishing here. I'm talking about being able to link the midfield and attack, get on the ball, hold it up, and play it off to the wings a lot of the time. It was after the Blackpool game last season where Akpom was saying, I know from training where everyone's supposed to be. I know where Force is supposed to be. I know where Giles is supposed to be. That's what you want in a guy who's playing number 10, and you're being able to help build those attacking moves. The fact that he was in the positions to score the goals at the end of those moves was kind of a bonus to that as well. And hell of a bonus as well for 29 goals. But I think we do need someone who's a little bit quicker in that number 10 role and reacts a little bit quicker. I don't think that's Coburn, and I don't think that's Crooks. I think either of those could still play a role in the team, and playing that kind of more advanced number 9 role. But I think the clamour for Coburn coming back in is because he offers something like that. But I also don't think he's the solution to the issue in terms of the style of play that we have. We still need to fill that role. But Coburn is a pretty good kind of stopgap until we get there, I think.
Okay, and the next question is from Keith, and he says, when all players are available, what's the best front four we can start? So I'll ask you both this question, but for me, I'm going to go with Greenwood on the left. Not Greenwood on the left, sorry, Ryan McGree on the left.
I was gonna say it.
Yeah, Riley McGree on the left-hand side. I would go with probably right now, I'd go laugh up top. I'd go with Isaiah Jones on the right, and I'd probably stick with Crooksy right now, to be honest. But for me, I really like Morgan Rogers. I really, really do. But I just didn't think he suited that number 10 role at the start of the season. But it could still work. He's got like the attributes to do it, but I just don't think he's ready for it right now. And what do you guys think? What's your best front four?
I'd probably say McGree. Well, definitely say McGree on the left, Jones on the right, Crooks number 10. And I'll be completely transparent with you. I think it's 6 and 2 3s on who's centre forward because I think they're both equally as average. Like, I give Coburn more leeway because he's a young player and he's developing. Lath is 24, so he's further down that development ladder, or further up it, shall I say, if I want to stick with that analogy. So, yeah, it's obvious, really. I say that that's the best one that we have available to us, but that's not good enough to get us into the top 6, in my opinion, if that's our aspirations, which it should be based on where we were last season. So I'm looking at number 10, I'm looking at centre forward, and I'm thinking we definitely need reinforcements there. And I would even say, depending on how long Force is out for, that we could potentially need a right winger as well, somebody that can offer that width that isn't Isaiah Jones, because 9 times out of 10, or I'll say 8 times out of 10, Jones's final ball is lacking. So yeah, even given the fact that I think that that's the best available front four, should everyone be fit, I still think it needs additions just to bump that quality up somewhat.
Actually, I'm going to switch Force over for laugh and play Force up top. There you go. But
Shit, I actually forgot about Force. Sorry, I'd put Force in mine instead of Jones. Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
I forgot about Jones.
Go...
I forgot about Force, then remembered Force, but still omitted Force. So I'm going to put him back in there. Yes,
Johnny, you jumped right
in
in there and put Force up top right before I had the chance to say it. But I'd love to see Force up top. Over
never going to happen.
Coburn. It's not going to happen,
no.
But I would like to see that. But then the three behind him, I would have the same as you, Johnny. I would have McGree, Crooks, and Jones.
And then the next question is from Robbie. Says, what are we missing in attack when it's not working? What type of striker do we need? How will we make 4 or 5 spaces in the squad to add new players in Jan? Tom, I think you alluded to it a little bit earlier on around deregistering players who are probably out for the season, which we can definitely do. And, in terms of when it's not working, your strikers are only as good as the team around you. And if everyone's playing narrow and not giving you the space, then that's probably the reason why it's not working. And to be honest, I looked at it yesterday. Layoff was playing left winger for the most of the second half because I think he was just wanting some space at that point because it was just so crowded in that central area, and he was trying to give Middlesbrough an outlet. And it's probably his strength is running in with the ball and going forward and taking a strike. But like I said on our early show about Laugh, that if you give him more than one decision to make, he probably makes the wrong one. But in terms of like what striker do we need, I think you've both kind of alluded to it in the last couple of questions. So we'll move on into the final one. It's from Gokul, and he says, "Can Sam Silvera really contribute to Boro games for the rest of the season? He has decent pace and dribbling, but he seems to lack the precision and smoothness in the link-up play at times. He wasn't picked at the start of the game, in which we needed someone like him. I think he can contribute at this level. He just needs a run of games where he's allowed to make mistakes. Is it better for both Boro and him to get loaned out to another team for the rest of the season, and we are reassessing in the summer?" So a few questions within that, but then I'll let you take it. And can Sammy Silvera really contribute for Boro games this season, and would you actually loan him out?
I wouldn't loan him out, no. I think he can make a positive impact for us. Maybe we do just need to play him as a right wing. I think Tom's point earlier was good. I didn't realise that he was right-footed. I thought he was left-footed, to be honest. But yeah, with him, he's frustrating, is Silvera. He frustrates me as much as Lath frustrates me, because when he cuts inside, he just puts too much power behind his shots, and I think we see them hit Rose Ed more times than not. But I actually listened back to our insight, our lowdown video for Sammy Silvera, and the insight that we were provided from Pete, I think, Central Coast Mariners fan. He said that he is explosive. He's got very good 1v1 dribbling, and he's a live wire. That's what he said. We haven't quite seen that with Sammy Silvera, so maybe we have to facilitate him being better in his performances by playing him on that right-hand side, maybe. So, yeah, I think he can. I think he can make an impact. But as with a lot of players, with Rogers, with Lath, with even the fullbacks, Engel and Bangura, we just need to allow them time to refine their game, to improve, to develop. I know it's maybe something that people roll their eyes at because it's said quite a lot, but I do just think these players need time, and they're going to be frustrating until they reach that point of refinement. But hopefully with Silvera, we could give him that patience. And yeah, I'm going to get frustrated with him because he is frustrating. But at the end of the day, I think he can be a good player for us. He probably just needs that game time, really. If we can bring him off the bench a lot more, see him play, see him get really embedded into this team, I think we've got a good player there. It just needs to be unlocked, like with many players in this side as well.
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean? You can't come in there and just make an instant impact straight away. We just moved over from half across the world. But yeah, he looks all plays in it. I think game time and rhythm and trying to play as much as you can, and again across things makes always a better player for sure. But thank you very much for questions this week. It's now trivia time. Everyone loves a bit of trivia on this podcast, and each week I ask you a question. And you might get it, you might not. But this week, I think I went with a little bit of an easier one, I would say, this week, with the last one being quite difficult. And also, there was a lot of players I missed out in terms of who played for both Boro and Ipswich. I think there was about 4 or 5 more, which I just accidentally left out. But we'll move on to it. And the question this week for Boro versus Hull is in 2011, in the 4-2 win where we beat Hull, where Maxi Haas absolutely played the game of his life and was never seen ever again after that. Who was the former Boro player who was the manager of Hull? So which former Boro player was the manager of Hull in that 2011 game where Boro won 4-2? And the timer starts now. Time is up. and I'm probably thinking if you're in your car, you're walking your dog, you're washing the dishes, you might have got this answer already. You may be like, no, this is a shit part of the show. I don't want to re-listen to this too much. But I'm coming to you guys anyway for your answers. And Tom, you look very smug there. You look like you think you know the answer. So who is your answer? Who have you went for?
I think I know the answer. I've gone with Nigel Pearson.
Okay.
I feel like I can remember him being Hull manager. I remember being at that game. It's the first ever time I drank, so it's a good thing I can remember being at the game. But yeah, I think it was him.
Okay, you went with Nigel Pearson. Now, Nigel Pearson has managed a lot of clubs in his time, and he was indeed a manager of Hull between 2010 and 2011, but he wasn't the manager in that game. Dana, who have you went with on this one?
This one, I had to really rack my brain, and I'm not sure. Because I know he played for them. I don't know if he managed them. Nick Barmby.
That is correct. It is Nick Barmby. He was manager of Hull, and they did go on a stint where he was doing very well as a manager at Hull City, but then it all just fell away and he got sacked. After they spent quite a bit of money on him as well. And to be fair, it was his only managerial job to date, actually, and he had a 40% win rate and then just never managed again. But there you go, some Nick Barmby history right there. And he was manager from the 15th of November to the 8th of May 2012. But let's move on to the game against Hull midweek. The Tigers come to the Riverside in 8th place and the joint 6th in the championship table. But to find out how they've got there and how the season have went so far, we spoke to Ant Northgraves from Hull and back to find out a little bit more.
Yeah, so our season so far has been a bit up and down, inconsistent, but we are in a position where I think the vast majority of City fans, if you'd asked them before the season started, they would have taken it. We're level on points with 6th place. We missed an opportunity to go 5th yesterday with a win. But those same reoccurring injury problems that we had from last season threatening to derail what was a really good start. It looks like Philogene might be out for a while as well, so that's a bit of a worry. But like you say, we're the style of play under Rosini has been brilliant. It's we like the two midfielders sitting deep, Morton and Seri, and then we try and create that gap between. We will try and bridge the gap between defence and attack, and try and counter teams with pace on the wings. But keeping our right-sided winger Lakilo fit has been an issue this season. Feel like we need another winger for support out there, because otherwise we end up playing centre midfielders out there. So yeah, it's been a bit frustrating. But yeah, definite players to watch. I would have said Philogene, but he's most likely going to be out for a few weeks now with a medial injury, I think, that he suffered in the beginning of the second half against QPR. But Tyler Morton's very good. Recently got his England under-21 debut. Scored 3 goals in a week a couple of weeks ago. He's been very good, and Liam Delap has been outstanding. He's our focal point. Very aggressive in his style of play. He just runs at defenders, creates an absolute host of problems for him. So yeah, I'd say Liam Delap and Tyler Morton will be our ones to watch if Philogene's not fit. And the prediction for Boro, we never get anything from the Riverside, just as we never get anything from Loftus Road. So it's 2 bogey grounds in a row, which isn't ideal given the current situation. But Rosini probably will just make us go back to being hard to beat rather than try and score goals. So I can't imagine it's a high scoring affair. But I do think that Boro will do us this game. I'm going to say it will be Middlesbrough 2, Hull 1. Yeah, unfortunately.
So thank you very much for that. And just going back to the old trivia question, I've actually got it wrong. It actually was Nigel Pearson. So Tom, you're right all along. So sorry, Dana. I just realised.
Wait, what?
So in the trivia, I'm actually wrong.
Is it actually? When did Nigel Pearson? In what universe did Nigel Pearson manage Hull?
So he managed them from the 29th of June 2010 to the 14th of November 2011, where Barmby took over 14th of November 2011 to 8th of May 2012. So that result where Middlesbrough won 4-2 was 23rd of April 2011. So head to head, you were wrong. It was Nigel Pearson and not Nick. Because you threw me a little bit, Tom. Well, so I was listening to Ant there, and I was like, it doesn't feel right. So anyway,
the funny thing is as well, The funny thing is, as well, Nick Barmby was going to be my first answer before I remembered Nigel Pearson.
Oh,
The
right,
listeners
there you go.
will have clocked that, and then will have had to listen to that voice note and then to find
Yeah.
out the actual correction. Jesus,
Oh,
Johnny.
absolute schoolboy error. Anyway, let's do predictions then, because Hull have been very, very good this season. Very hard to beat, of course, and they're coming to the Riverside, with a little bit in and out of form, but are starting to rack up some injuries. But guys, what's our predictions for the game? Dan, I'll let you go first. What's your prediction?
I am going to go for a 2-1 Boro victory, and the one goal for Hull will be inevitably Aaron Connolly, because I thought he was injured. Turns out that he's back now, so it would just be so fitting if Aaron Connolly comes back to the Riverside and scores a legitimate goal, because he was honking for us, let's be honest. So yeah, 2-1 Boro, Aaron Connolly scores for Hull though.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So he's fit again, ready to go to Pally Park. Tom, who are you? What's your prediction going to be? Sorry.
I'm going to go 2-0 Borough. And to kind of preempt your next question, I'm going to be going for Matt Clarke as an anytime goal scorer.
Fantastic. So there you are, Tom. You're rounding off your Tom's bet anytime with Matt Clarke to score, and I will go with a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be a really tight game. I think Hull are probably one of the best teams out of possession in the Championship, and they look pretty good. And, with our injuries, etc., I feel like this could be a really difficult game for us. Although last year, I remember where Hull came to us and they were really, really good in that first half, and in the second half, we just blew them away with Archer and with Akpom. But we'll soon see. But for guys, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me as always. To listeners and the viewers, thank you very much for joining us as always. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. That helps us get found, charted, and all that kind of fun stuff. But for right now, 3 defeats in 4, and the Limp Borough are about to get thrown to the Tigers. This has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was our Boro Matchday chatter in a pod of the Boro Breakdown.